Sergio asked me to discuss a little bit about Chapter 13 bankruptcy. I'm going to cover that briefly, and I did want to also cover a couple of consumer protection statutes, which I think are really relevant to all of us, and that is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and the Fair Credit Reporting Act, things that are have become problems have come up on many occasions with a number of our clients having to deal with harassing debt collectors and credit reporting that is incredibly inaccurate, if not almost criminal. But as far as Chapter 13 bankruptcy is concerned, you know, there are normally two avenues for consumers to file bankruptcies. Chapter 7, if they want to liquidate their debts, but there are occasions where you may not want to do that, and it may be a situation where you don't qualify for Chapter 7, then you go into Chapter 13, and that may be because your income is too high. But even if you do qualify for Chapter 7, you may want to go for Chapter 13, and the reason being is that there are some advantages. If you have, for example, a property that you want to keep, whether it be a vehicle or a home, you can put your arrearages, that is the amount that you owe back payments on, into the repayment plan, and that repayment plan can extend over 3 to 5 years. Furthermore, you may have some debts that cannot be discharged in Chapter 7, and you do need time to pay them off, and you would be able to pay them off in a 3 to 5 year plan. Those include tax debts, alimony, child support, student loans, things of that nature, and that's where a Chapter 13 plan can become advantageous for you. The other situation is if you do have a co-debtor and you file Chapter 7, and that's a co-debtor is someone you truly care about, that co-debtor is now going to be subject to the debt collection activities that I'm referring to. So if you really want to help your co-debtor out, you don't want to file a Chapter 7 and leave it all on your co-debtor. You can go back into a repayment plan and pay off the portions that you owe as well. I want to cover the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act because I think that it is something that affects us all, because we all get into debts, whether we pay them on time or we don't pay them on time. We all get into debts voluntarily. We get into contracts to pay, whether it be for a home, for a car, whether it be credit cards, medical bills, but we all incur debts that we have to pay off later. Sometimes we forget about them, sometimes we do pay them, but they don't get the check, and sooner or later you may get a letter, you may get a reminder notice. A few months may pass and you'll get maybe a little nastygram. Then the phone calls will start, and they'll start asking you for money, after which you may get phone calls from a third-party debt collector if it's gone a certain period of time. What would happen is the debt collection is a big business, and they don't care about you as a person. They only care about you as a number. They care about you as their lunch, their dinner. They care about how much money they can get from you. Ultimately, all they don't care about your sob story. The only thing they do care about is, can they get you to pay, or can they get you to make promise to pay? The important point for them is to break you down, and break you down to the point where you're going to give them something. And the point of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is to empower you, to protect yourself against the debt collectors, because they do not care about you. And you need to free yourself from the pain that the debt collectors do cause you. And what the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act covers is a number of areas in which debt collectors are prohibited from behaving when trying to collect the debt from you. For example, they cannot call you before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. They cannot use threatening language. They cannot use obscene language. We actually have a client right now who was cursed out on the phone over $200. They can't call you if you're represented by an attorney. They can't threaten you with violence. They can't put you on a deadbeat list. We have another client who was on a deadbeat list for not paying her condo fees. They took that down eventually, but the damage was already done. They can't call you repeatedly, especially if you've told them that you refuse to pay or that you don't want to be called anymore. They can't call you at work if you tell them you're not allowed to receive those calls at work. They can't pretend to be law enforcement. They can't send you documents which make it seem like there's a lawsuit against you. I had a case in Palm Beach County about 2 years ago where the debt collector had been sending fake summonses to former patients of an anesthesiologist's office that, in my client's case, she had just delivered a baby. And imagine, the feeling you get. You come home with this bundle of joy. You neglect to pay. Your insurance pays the portion of the bill they're supposed to pay. 6 months pass and you forget to pay the small amount that you may have had to pay, a copay, something else. And now you're getting this summons in the mail. Upon our investigation, we determined that this particular debt collector was sending out fake summonses to basically everybody that was a patient in this office, and we found out that they had been practicing this behavior in Collier County and were shut down in Collier County a year earlier, and they decided to start up the practice in Palm Beach County. So this is not anything unusual, but it is illegal, and you have a right to be protected from that. And based on our investigation, we were able to shut down that debt collector. One of the things that's really important, a really important part of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is your right to demand verification of that debt. So if you don't believe that you owe that debt, or if you don't believe the amount is right, you can request validation within 30 days of the first communication that they give you, whether it be by letter or by phone. When you do that, they actually have to stop collection process until they verify that debt. They also have to stop all collection process, the collection process against you if you hire an attorney. They have to go through your attorney from that point on. So those are some of the protections that the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act provides you. And really, like I said, it's about empowering you against the debt collector, because I know if you've ever been harassed by a debt collector, you can feel powerless at times. And you need to know that there are laws there that protect you, and you're entitled to, if they do violate the law, you are entitled to damages. You can be entitled to either a minimum of $1,000 in statutory damages or any type of actual damages. There's a lawsuit that's pending in Hillsborough County, Florida right now, where the debt collector is accused of killing the person he was trying to collect from by causing his heart attack. And that has survived a number of motions to dismiss, and it's a serious case, serious enough that the judge refused to dismiss the case against the debt collector. The other consumer protection statute I wanted to cover is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and the reason that's important is that every client that comes into our office, one of the first things I ask them is, when did you last order your credit report? And the answer is usually, I can't remember. And that should never be the answer, especially in South Florida, where identity theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. People should be ordering their credit report at least once a year. And you can do so for free. And you go to a website called annualcreditreport.com. And that's run by the government. It's called annualcreditreport.com. It's the only place where you really can get it for free without having to be scammed into paying anything, any type of monitoring. You can get a credit report from each of the 3 major credit bureaus for free once a year. And you should always check it, because more than half of the credit reports out there contain errors. And they could be as innocuous for you. You may think it's innocuous as a misspelling of a name, or a misspelling of a job, or a particular address. But those things can play a big part in credit reporting errors. one of the biggest issues that we have is credit mix or credit merge. And that is, your credit file may be merged. You may have excellent credit. You may have had excellent credit for years, but you may be merged. Your file may end up getting merged with another person's file with a similar name, similar address, and that person has horrible credit. And now you're stuck trying to correct all the problems that have occurred because one or more credit bureaus have merged your files. So it's incredibly important to check your credit report at least once a year. Some of the things that Fair Credit Reporting Act provides for you is, besides getting your free credit report once a year, is one of the things you should know that if you do have any negative marks on your credit report, they can stay on your credit report for about 7.5 years. Things like delinquencies on your debts, bankruptcy stay on for about 10 years. And if they are inaccurate, it is your obligation to dispute them because they will not come off on their own. You have a right under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to dispute every inaccurate error that occurs on your credit report. And I encourage you to take advantage of the dispute process. It doesn't cost you anything other than the stamp. And I usually encourage people to send it certified mail, so there's a track record of when and how you sent the letter. Because the credit bureaus by law have 30 days to respond to you. And they have to, if they don't respond within 30 days of your request and your dispute of the error, they actually have to delete that error from your credit report. So it's in your best interest to dispute anything that you believe is inaccurate on your credit report. And that is part of what Sergio is discussing in terms of really kind of freeing you from the debt and the problems that get surrounded in debt. Part of it has to do with having an accurate credit report, because for better or for worse, our credit report defines who we are in the financial world. And errors on your credit report can make a big difference in how much interest you pay on a loan, whether you get insurance or not, whether it be car insurance, health insurance. The premiums you pay are based on your credit scores. Even employment, jobs that you apply for are many times based on what your credit report says. We have a client right now who was offered a job at an airline, at a local airline. And about 2 weeks later, after they reviewed her credit report, they withdrew that job offer. And when she came to us and we reviewed her credit report, we found out that there were significant errors, and that those errors, if corrected, would have helped her get that job. So I hope that these examples can at least guide you in maybe making the decision to review your credit report. And I say review it with a fine-tooth comb, because things that you say that you may think, oh, no, I think that's right. Don't just assume that it's right. Check everything and check every piece of data on that credit report. Check the numbers, check the dates, check the spellings, check everything. And if you think that there's anything wrong, then dispute it. And if you need help, obviously, then you should consult an attorney that handles these types of credit disputes. These are things that we do, things that I've been doing for quite a long time. It's not. These are things that we take very seriously. I hope that you do as well.